I'm going to start now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the information session on graduate studies in English at SFU. Before I start, actually, I wanted to begin by acknowledging that even in our sort of ethereal internet floaty states out there, that when we work, learn, and teach here at SFU, we do so on the traditional and unceded territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, Coquitlam, and Musqueam nations. As an uninvited settler scholar in this place, I make this acknowledgement inspired by the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee and just as a first step. My name is Matt Hussey. I am the graduate chair here in English. As a scholar, as a researcher, I work almost entirely in the early Middle Ages, the literature of English, in English and Latin from between the years around 700 to 1100. And I mostly write about poetry, history, and mainly really medieval manuscripts and manuscript culture. I'm really glad today to be able to introduce my colleagues Belle Eist, Garin Fahlman, both Master of Arts students, and Kate Moffatt, a current doctoral student. Each of them are going to be talking about their research and their experiences in the department for a little bit, and then we're going to save all questions to the end. So there'll be time for Q&A at the end for me or for any questions you might have for them as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly talk about the faculty and the department, our community of graduate students. Then I'm going to talk about the degrees and the options, the various sort of forking paths of the program. And I'll talk a little bit about next cycle's courses. And then that's when Belle and Garin and Kate will jump in. And then after that, after they talk, we'll have a little bit on the application process itself. So I'm going to share some slides now. And we'll get started. All right. Okay. I never know what people can see, but that's okay. Welcome to the session. I'm going to start with a discussion of our faculty. The department has a robust and wide-ranging number of scholars. We have over 20 faculty whose work begins at the earliest period in English literature. That would be me, guilty, and runs up to the here and now of 21st century Canadian, British, and really global literatures. I cannot go through what each of these people do, even though it would be kind of fun. But I do want to touch on some of our special strengths. So besides myself, we have another. How do I advance? There we go. Besides myself, we have another medievalist. That's David Coley, who has a recent book on the plague in medieval English poetry. And that book won the Margaret Wade LaBarge Prize for Best Book in Medieval Studies by the Canadian Society of Medievalists. And he is now working on a book on trauma theory and late medieval literature. Our department has 3 scholars who do the early modern period, the Renaissance. That's Paul Boudra, James Fleming, and Rhonda Arab. Their work touches on Shakespeare and gender, on embodiment, on history and the philosophy of knowledge and information in the Renaissance, and theories of consciousness in Shakespearean drama. That's Paul's most recent stuff. We have several scholars working in the 18th century. Diana Solomon, who works on comedy and gender in Restoration drama. Leith Davis, who works on cultural memory and Scottish literature, among other things. She just ran an amazing conference on unsettling or decolonizing Scottish studies. And Michelle Levy, who works on romantic poets and book history, print history. I'll talk a little bit more about some of Michelle's bigger projects at the end. The English department here at SFU also has a number of scholars and writers who explore the intersection of research and creative practice. So Cornell Bogle is a published poet and a scholar of Black diasporic and Caribbean literature. Clint Burnham writes on psychoanalytic theory, Canadian art, poetics. He writes on pretty much everything, lots of psychoanalysis. And Steve Collis, who works on anarchism, on eco-theory and poetics, and also is an award-winning poet. Oops, I always keep putting the wrong button, sorry. Then we have some folks working in the Victorian period. Dr. Carolyn Lesjak. She works on Marxist theory and the Victorian novel. And we have Margaret Lindley, who works on eco-criticism and indigenous theory as well. Deanna Rader She works and teaches in Indigenous literatures and has this. I'll talk about this again too. This amazing DH project going on about lost, ignored, and marginalized Indigenous authors. And I will finish with other DH projects. So we have, like I said, there's the Women's Print History Project, which Michelle runs, as well as she works with the people and the text. That's Deanna's project. And then one of our new faculty members, Dr. Joanne Lau, has one of her DH projects is intertidal polyphonies, and that's kind of related to the grad course she will be talking about in the next, or teaching about in the next cycle. And she also works on, she told me, diasporic Asian foodways. So I'm waiting for that as well. This is a lot, I know, but one takeaway I want to emphasize is that when you do your work here at SFU, we are committed to developing close relationships between the students and the faculty. Our program and our courses are pretty small, allowing faculty to give students significant attention. Students often teach with faculty and that they're studying with as TAs. And many faculties mentor students as part of larger research projects. And many MA students, just at the MA level, choose the project option for their MA degree. And so they work one-on-one with their supervisor on that project. So let me talk a little bit about these required, this is the sort of most informational part. So, you can screenshot that or take notes. I don't know. The Master of Arts program, the MA program, has two options. The coursework option, which is 6 courses while you're here, plus the Graduate Pro Seminar. The project option is 5 courses, but then the 6th thing would be your MA project. This is a project that you develop and propose with a faculty committee, and you work with them. It's kind of a flexible container. That the MA project is often a research paper, but we have students doing research creation or creative writing-ish projects, as well as DH or other kinds of projects as well. In the project option, the MA students also do the Graduate Pro Seminar, which I'll talk about. And within the MA, another bit that is possible for either of those two streams is the print culture specialization or certificate. And in that, to earn the certificate in print culture, you have to take the English 820 course, which is the Introduction to Print Culture Theory, plus two courses that are designated as print culture courses, and then do your project on print culture, book history, etc., or 3 print culture designated courses. So that's the way that runs. Now, the doctorate in English is 5 graduate courses plus the pro seminar. And then when you complete those 5 courses, you start your secondary field examination. This is you have a small committee on a field adjacent to contextual, not quite your dissertation research, but something that might be useful to you as a secondary teaching field or alongside the work you do. When you complete that field exam, you take the primary field examination, which is on your dissertation or your thesis field. Then you have the prospectus conference where you design or propose your thesis, your dissertation with your graduate committee. Once you do that, all you have to do is write the thesis, and that's the easy part. All right. So the only thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is I mentioned it a few times, the pro seminar. Each year, all incoming graduate students in the cohort, the new cohort, the entering cohort, in addition to their regular coursework, participate in what's called the pro seminar. And this runs once a week, and it runs in fall and spring. It focuses on professional aspects of the field. So teaching, research, academic writing, and then a lot about the resources available to you as SFU graduate students, research resources, and we work a lot on grant writing in that first fall term. And in the last few years, we've had a series of meetings where we've taken up issues of decolonization and indigenization at the university level and at the field level. So that the pro seminar is really designed to get you sort of to give you the support and framework to be a graduate student and to really to be in the field of English. Students in pro seminar often collaborate and work together. Sometimes they teach together, exchange ideas, tips, support. We just had a session last week about strategies for grading final papers and grading final exams. So there's hope, lots of community built, hopefully every time we run that pro seminar. It's a low stakes space. I mean, it's graded pass fail. It's just a requirement. It's a low stakes space, really, I hope, to make connections and get all of your questions answered as you go through the first year of graduate study. Next year, or next cycle, I'm sorry, next cycle, these are the courses that are offered. We try to offer a range across, historical periods, across theoretical approaches. Often hands-on or creative approaches are built into some of these courses. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are, of course, several on print and book history, a bunch on contemporary poetics, and we have in this next cycle, it's very global. We have the Caribbean, Scottish, Indigenous, and Pacific and Asian literatures all represented. So this is posted on our website, and the fuller course descriptions will be going up shortly. So you can check out what the reading lists will look like, what the assignments might look like going ahead, if as you're looking at graduate programs. All right, now what I'd like to do next is turn it over to our three guest stars, and I think I will start with Belle Eist.
Hi, thank you, Matt, and hi everyone. Matt asked us to talk about what we've enjoyed about the program, what it does well, what the department does well. I have so much to say, so I'll try and keep it brief. For a little context, I am in the second year of my MA. I did my undergrad at SFU as well, and I wanted to continue into grad school here because of the really outstanding faculty and the wonderful funding as well. For my research interests, I research women writers in the 18th and 19th century, particularly in England. For my MA project, I'm researching Jane Loudon's 1827 novel, The Mummy, A Tale of the 22nd Century, and Mary Shelley's 1826 novel, The Last Man, as examples of proto-science fiction novels. Interestingly, just a fun fact, Loudon's novel is the earliest example of an English language literary work in the mummy subgenre, which I find super exciting. Yeah. So you can really do whatever you want for your project if you have a particular interest. Yeah. So what the program department does really well, I have a whole list here. It's very supportive and it caters to your individual research interests and needs in the program. Like Matt was saying, we have a really well-rounded department with a variety of strengths. For my research interests, I've been really lucky to work with faculty like Dr. Michelle Levy and Dr. Leif Davis, who are experts with multiple publications in the field. Working with these professors also enabled me to dive into book history and digital humanities research, which has opened the door to new interests and skills. On that note, we have amazing faculty. It was too hard to leave after undergrad. I've had the privilege of working with so many awesome people like Dr. Hussey, Dr. Everton, Dr. Davis, Dr. McCall, and so many more on my graduate coursework. They are incredible scholars and professors in their teaching and in their knowledge and in their care for their students. At SFU, the English department is also amazing at supporting you in applying for external funding. I think that the department has become pretty well known for helping students apply for scholarships like the Canada Graduate Scholarship or SHIRK, you've probably heard. These are considered relatively difficult to get, but the department and the grad chair has provided so much information, feedback, and support throughout the application process last year. It made it less overwhelming, and I gained useful skills around writing a succinct proposal and applying for funding. This is one of many practical skills that you get to work on in the pro seminar course that help you feel like a more well-rounded academic and maybe teacher in the future. As well, SFU has wonderful TA opportunities. It's been a wonderful experience getting to TA and to teach. And many grad programs don't allow you to TA in your first year of grad school. So SFU stands out for allowing you to TA and also doing a lot of mentorship for first year TAs as well. Overall, it's a wonderful program. I feel very lucky to be here and come here. If you have somewhere else, come here instead. Thank you.
All right, I was going to turn it over to Garin next, and then we'll go to Kate.
Yeah, hi. I mean, that definitely is a great summary. I share a lot of the same thoughts. But yeah, my name is Garin. I'm a second year MA student as well. Also went through my undergrad here, so that should tell you something. We're definitely not wanting to leave once we're here. It is a it's a great department, and the instructors do their best to make you want to stay. So my research, just to give you an idea of that, it is on sort of the digital archiving side of things. I've been a collector of all sorts of things my whole life, so I decided, as Belle said, you're really encouraged to follow your interests. So I thought, why not do a project and do my research on digital archiving, specifically looking at early internet archiving. So that's been really, really fun. And the support here has been really, really great. So there are a couple things like when I was deciding what to do, I thought about, well, what did I want out of grad school? As someone that already came here for my undergrad, I obviously wanted more time with these instructors that had been a really great resource for me in undergrad. I wanted experience teaching adults. I had some experience teaching younger children, but this is a great way to get that experience through TAing. And I wanted just more of that like academic freedom that sort of upper level undergrad courses were starting to give you access to or give me access to. And the opportunity to be supported in kind of having more freedom with my academic direction. So what I got was all of that and more. I obviously got more time with those instructors. That was a given. They didn't suddenly take off the mask and become terrible once I got to the master's program. The opposite, actually. One of the benefits, this weirdly on camera looks like I'm in like a janitor's closet. This is actually my office on the sixth floor, and it looks much nicer in person. All the cool stuff's out of frame. This is such a great thing, if you choose to TA and you come up here. Being here, I actually feel like I'm more connected to like SFU than I ever was in my undergrad. Being surrounded by like the other students in the program, PhDs and masters, and having the profs also just kind of, Matt's actually not far down. Dr. Hussey's not far down the hall for me. Like you are able to just have higher level intellectual conversations with people, and it's really, really useful. Even so much as asking, professors, how do you plan classes? What are you thinking about when it comes to research? How do you do these things? Super, super helpful. And they're really, really open to sharing that stuff with you. The other thing I've gotten is just my experience with being a TA has been super, super amazing. Even as someone that's had a little bit of teaching experience before, here it is, you get an opportunity to, yeah, teach your peers at a bit of a higher level. But something that wasn't really obvious to me until I started is you do it with access to professionals. There are professors here that are professional teachers, and being able to kind of have the freedom in your own tutorial to try things and figure out your own teaching style, but then also talk to people that know what they're doing, and not even just profs. My office, when I first got it, I was paired with someone who was a second year MA herself, and she was a great TA. She was also an amazing resource. So I think hopefully the idea that like one of the strongest things I've gotten out of this is just the connections and the being a little bit closer to kind of the beating heart of the English department, I suppose, is just it's a really invaluable thing. And just on research, my research topic that I mentioned of like sort of digital archiving and the old internet, SFU doesn't offer like a class in that yet. Maybe that will come. But that didn't make me feel like I fit in less here just because there isn't a professor of like old internet technology or anything. Some of the best advice I've gotten is from like 18th century Shakespearean professors. Everyone here has such a breadth of research and knowledge that it's really almost better for you if you're able to do something that isn't exactly like what a specific prof or class here represents, because you're just going to be able to take so much more from all these really smart people's brains. And I couldn't imagine doing it anywhere else, honestly. So yeah, just to finish up, I mean, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of work, but weirdly, I think I wouldn't be able to do my MA at SFU if it wasn't like for SFU, just because the support and uh, the amount of resources that you are given and have access to because of the size of the program and just because of how much they honestly value you once you're here is really something that can't be visualized really easily on like a slide, but it is, yeah, just a wonderful experience.
Thanks, Garin. And now I will dream of someday being a professor of old internet technology, which would be awesome, and turn it over to Kate.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, amazing. One of the bonuses of being a PhD student is I think a lot about my research all the time. Not that the MA students don't, but I am going to talk a little bit more about it. I'm going to dedicate a little more time to that because a lot of what is so fantastic about the department is connected to my research and what I'm doing with it. So hi, I am Kate. I am a third-year PhD student in the department. I also did my undergrad and my master's at SFU. And the reason that I came back for my PhD is because it is so well I'm trying to think of the right word here, but it's got so much for the print culture book history aspects of what I do. I study 18th century women's book history and specifically women working in the book trades as publishers, printers, and booksellers in London from 1750 to 1800, but more broadly from 1700 to about 1830. And my project that I'm working on, my dissertation, is twofold. I'm trying to find these women who worked as printers, publishers, and booksellers. And then I'm also trying to think about and theorize why they were invisible in the field of book history for a very long time and how we might render them more visible. In recent decades, women's involvement in the production of books has been more properly studied, but it has made us all the more aware of how they were of all the ways in which they were invisible, either on the books that they produced, because they signed their name as something like A. Riley, which could sound like Alexander Riley, but it's actually Alice, and how they have remained invisible or unaccounted for in resources and research on the topic that's been produced in the centuries that followed. So I'm engaging in something that we like to call feminist bibliography, that is the study of the book, the material book, with an emphasis on how women's involvement might be seen, accounted for, and made visible, given that the field traditionally has persistently assumed that its players are always male, with a few women exceptions. And so feminist bibliographers are working to correct that narrative by recognizing the ways in which the sources that we turn to find out who produced these books, things like the Stationers' Company records, were created to capture information about men. And so we're thinking about the ways in which that has gendered implications for how we understand the history of the book trades and women's involvement in them. So my dissertation is seeking to make these women, I've been using the term radically visible, not only bibliographically on books, but historically and geographically, because there were so many ways in which these women were known and how they operated and the communities they produced and were a part of. And it's kind of wild to think about where those traces might have gone and that we can't find them anymore. So I have, over the last couple of years, been collecting business address information about more than 200 women-run businesses, and I am constantly collecting more of them. And the written part of my dissertation will be taking up women's visibility in book history. And then I'm creating a digital portion, which will be a digital project that maps the locations of these women and the dates of their activity. And what will result is a literally visible map of the women in the book trades, which I'm hoping will reveal more of the connections and communities that we're starting to discover existed. Yeah, so I think that that actually transitions me fairly well into thinking about what has been so perfect about SFU for this project, aside from the fact that we have a really spectacular print culture program and book history aspect to the department, is we also have a lot of 18th centuryists. I work with Dr. Michelle Levy, who runs the Women's Print History Project that was on one of Matt's slides. And that is trying to account for women's involvement in book history from 1700 to 1836. I worked on that as an undergrad, and I am now the project manager of that project. And having those research opportunities not only familiarized me with book history and print culture and women's involvement more particularly, but it also gave me access to things like the digital humanities, thinking about the ways in which that can be applied and what we can do with that. And so my own dissertation having this digital humanities aspect comes purely out of that research assistant work. But it has also been supported by the fact that our grad seminars at SFU are fantastic for allowing us to think about things in ways that don't always have to produce like a traditional essay. This is always going to depend on who's teaching the course, but I have done things like I created a mapping project for the 18th century group called the Blue Stockings, the women who were very well read. I was mapping where their letters were sent from, trying to figure out a bit of a geography. I've created podcast episodes. It's very much it's open to thinking about ways of knowledge making that don't always necessarily look like traditional 15-page essays. Our directed study option is also fantastic. Matt didn't mention this, I don't think, so I hope I'm not repeating you, Matt. But there is an option to do directed studies, which is where you're coming up with a topic for a course on your own with a supervisor. But they do one specifically with special collections and rare books in the library, which is part of the print culture certification Matt mentioned. And last year I did one of those where I was actually working with the letterpress in the book art studio. I was trying to print a book. I actually printed 4 pages because I learned as I was working that there is so much that goes into printing a book aside from just the labor of actually setting the type. And so my interest obviously in women as individuals and makers in the book trades, I learned a lot about what that process actually looks like when I had to engage in it myself. Where am I putting the page numbers? Why does my wrist hurt after composing 4 lines of type? These were things that reminded me about the physicality and the embodiment of women's labor. So being able to put that in conversation with the digital humanities side of things, my digital project, I don't know how to code something like that. I am in awe of the people who do, but I will be working with the Digital Humanities Innovation Lab at the library, who works closely with a lot of the folks who are running big projects in the English department. And they are there to quite literally help you create your project. If you are making a database, if you're making a digital project with mapping like I am, they're there to help create that and host that for your research, which is incredible. They're also very lovely people. So that's amazing. And I would reiterate everything Garin and Belle said also. The pro seminar is fantastic. From what I've heard from from friends at other universities, it is almost unheard of for students to get the amount of support that they get there. Things like, how do I apply for a conference? Where do I find CFPs, like calls for papers for applying for a conference? How do I write an abstract? How do I make a curriculum vitae? Like, these are things that the pro-sem is so fantastic. In addition to everything else that it does, it is incredibly useful for trying to figure out how to be in academia generally and in grad school more specifically. Yeah. I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Kate. Okay, I'm just going to share one last slide and talk a little bit about the application process. This is our website. At the English department, SFU English department, you can go to graduate studies. There's a whole page for how to apply there. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. And then open things up to questions. So we have applications are due at the end of January. So, you know, that's our target date for everything being in. If you have any questions as you approach that date, if you want to ask about letters or transcripts or whatever, you can always email me. We also have a wonderful graduate program assistant, Simberdeep Baines-Perry. She's the one that her contact information is likewise on this page. So be aware that you can get answer questions. She can answer a lot of questions as well. So your graduate, what happens is you compile, as you probably already know, you compile a portfolio of material. You'll have your transcripts with all of your marks. You'll have reference letters from professors that you've worked with. You'll have a writing sample that you feel represents your very best work in the field, and you will have a tricky little document called a statement of research purpose, or research intent. I can't even remember what we call it, but this is a short document that you talk about who you are and what you're interested in and why you're interested in it and what you would like to do with your graduate studies. And sometimes these can be amazingly specific. People have a project in mind before they start, especially at the doctoral level. The other thing that I would suggest is if you are wanting to apply to the PhD program, that you reach out to potential supervisors in advance. So you can just drop them if there's the person that you want to work with here on our faculty, drop them a line, let them know who you are, and ask them if they would be interested in reading your proposal or reading your work or talking a little bit about what you want to work on. You don't have to do that, but it doesn't hurt, and it can be very eye-opening for you. And our faculty are really nice. This isn't like, it's not a bad imposition. It's not some thing. Like, people do it all the time. So please feel free to do that as well. We read our applications very holistically. We look at all of the elements and as they work together. So I often get questions from potential applicants who are like, "Oh, I had a really bad first year at undergrad, and my GPA is low or whatever." We understand that happens. So I just be aware that we have a sort of whole picture view of our applicants when we are reading these files. Decisions tend to get made in mid to third week of February. It always depends on things. What happens then is that we submit our recommendations to the university's graduate studies office, and then they send an official letter, which you have to respond to and click internet links or whatever. The acceptance letters will lay out the terms of admission. But one thing that I want to emphasize is that the English department guarantees a funding package to all incoming students. So everyone we admit, we will make a funding offer to you, right? And for a Master of Arts students, it will be a minimum of a year. And for a PhD student, it will be a minimum of 4 years of funding. That funding will be a combination of various awards, scholarships, and fellowships, as well as guaranteed a certain number of terms teaching, right? Where you do the work and you earn a salary as a TA. So we guarantee funding to all students that we admit. We generally admit somewhere around, the numbers change every year, but I'd say between 10 to 12 MA students and somewhere between 1 to 4 PhD students. It all is very variable, but it's basically in that zone. All right, and so now I'm going to open the floor to questions. I'm going to not share this anymore. And now, if you have a question, please raise your hand. I think you can do it in the chat as well if you're interested. And we'll do our best to answer them, Kate and Garin and Belle and I. I'll be question free. Oh, there's Anna.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentations. That super exciting, invigorating. I'm curious, what are the opportunities for PhD candidates to interact with, work with students and faculty outside of the English department?
Well, I can answer that. I can answer that in the sort of most, I'm such a terminal bureaucrat right now. I can answer that in the sort of the most practical terms. We have many PhD students whose committees include people from people outside of the English department. We have folks with people working with professors in GSWS and Global Asias. We have people working with committee members who are not even at SFU at all. That is not uncommon. So if your supervisor or your co-supervisor is here, your committee can have folks from outside the department as well as outside of SFU. The other thing that some students avail themselves of is that SFU is, as you probably all know, a member of the Western Dean's Agreement. So if you are interested in taking courses at a whole mess of universities that are in Western Canada, including University of Victoria, University of British Columbia, and others, you can sign up to what we call a WDA, Western Dean's Agreement course, and take courses across town or on the island. We've had students taking our courses who are coming from places like UBC and vice versa. I'm trying to think of other stuff.
I think
Yeah,
in like
Kate.
a less formal kind of way, there are a
Yeah,
few
you're not a
different ways
terminal
that
bureaucrat like me,
no,
Kate.
exactly. There is the work study program at SFU, which is a bursary program that is open to graduate students. And if you apply for, it's income based. So if you apply for work study and you receive work study, they give you a list of all the projects across the university that are signed up to be part of the work study program. And you reach out to them, letting them know that you're a work study student and you're interested, and they'll interview you. And that goes like across. Like I ended up working on the Women's Print History Project. That was a work study thing that I did during my undergrad, but you can apply for things in like history, or I think the sciences might get a little more tricky. But in like, yeah, history, gender studies, I had an interview actually with the art gallery. Like you can do a lot of different things across departments that way as well. And working as a graduate facilitator in the library or the media and maker commons that we have also will give you different kinds of opportunities to work with different faculty and different students if you're interested in like more interdepartmental stuff.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I was going to say, Anna, that's good. Okay. I think next up is Farah. Farah? Sorry.
Hi, sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you. I was wondering, with a lot of MA programs, we have to reach out to a professor first and then apply. Is this the same, or do we apply, then we end up talking about our interest, and we after we are admitted, we find someone to work with?
Yeah, so for the Master of Arts program, you do not need to talk to a professor or potential supervisor in advance. In fact, I tend to discourage that. When you can have people in mind for sure, but like when you're admitted to the program, you'll be taking your courses in that first couple terms. And generally, most folks start figuring out what their project, or what if they want to do the project, what their project might look like, and then they start talking to professors that they've either worked with in the classroom, or or they have a relationship from teaching in TAing opportunities. So that's when most of those connections are made, I would say. So it's definitely not part of the application process.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Where are we at, Rebecca?
Shirley in the chat. I know you've responded to Shirley, Kate. Did you want to add? Did you want to add anything, Matt?
I'm just looking at the question. So you're required to work as an RA. No, you do not have to work as an RA when you are in the MA program. The research assistantships, there are a variety of them. Some are ongoing year after year. Some are shorter term. So they are kind of, they're kind of ad hoc in a sense that they're like people hire when they get the grant to do this work, right? And so like Kate's been on a project for a long, long time. Belle's project is also, Garin, you're on the project as well. Yeah, so you're all, so some projects are ongoing, and folks get hired for those and stay over several terms. But there's certainly no requirement to work under their supervisor. And actually, a lot of faculty won't have our projects underway at the time, at any given time, that you can still be supervised by someone who isn't running an RA-ship. And MA students are not expected to publish in academic journals while in the program. We do, as part of the pro seminar, we've been doing a sort of workshop and how-tos to prepare an article for submission, and how to go about the submission process, like what journal do you send it to? How do you reach out? What does your cover letter look like? So we've been doing some of that in the pro seminar to help you publish if you're interested in that, but MA students are not required to publish.
Then I think Ellen's in there is connected. I don't know if we need to address that as well.
I'm looking, Ellen. Can we contact multiple professors just in case one says no? I mean, if you're doing a PhD and there's a couple people who fit the kind of work you want to do, you certainly can reach out to more than one person. Yeah, that's fine.
And then we have Gabriella in the chat.
Cool.
Or in the raised hand.
Yes, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm in my undergrad right now in English, and I don't really know what I'd want to do in terms of specializing or like researching. And I'm sure that's not like uncommon, but I was wondering like when you guys knew if SFU maybe helped inform your decisions or like what that looked like for you. Thank you.
Ooh, I like that question. I'm going to turn it over to the grad students.
Yeah, that was very similar to me. And I'll say like two quick things. One of the benefits of pro seminar, kind of like what Matt was just saying, is there are things baked into it that kind of force you to think about this stuff. I found pro seminar really, really helpful to give me a space to like think about research. You're making these cover letters and these kind of mock proposals that often turn into real proposals. That's kind of where I started to think about, well, just pie in the sky, what would I want to write about? And then quickly figure out if that's actually viable or not. And, hey, this is actually really interesting. So ProSem is a great place to do that. But yeah, it's certainly not something you need to have coming into the program. I didn't. So with ProSem, but then also just it's a question that I find it's kind of the weather conversation in the grad department is like, hey, what are you working on? One of the things about coming here, even as someone who like was doing my undergrad here, in the master's program and in grad school, like you get all these different people that you don't know. And when you're meeting them, like everyone's asking, what are you working on? What's your area of interest? So that happens a lot too. And then instead of just giving a canned answer, just start to ask people like, how did you arrive at your research? That's what I started doing. And like professors and PhD students that were already deep in it, that was super, super helpful. So those two things together, yeah, you don't have to have it coming in, but it'll be hard to avoid. You will just be thinking about it a lot, and it will happen.
Cool. Thanks so much.
And can I just add on there, Matt?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Awesome. It's also nice because there's a lot of flexibility in your first year. So you will have to apply for SSHRC if you are a permanent resident or Canadian citizen. That's a requirement from graduate studies. However, you can change your mind. So I think it was very reassuring when I was applying for SSHRC that I knew that I wasn't going to be like chained to that project that I put forward for, the rest of my master's degree, because you have to apply quite early in your first semester. So I proposed something that I had sort of started in undergrad, which was a project looking at a particular woman writer in the late 18th and early 19th century. And she was someone I was super interested in undergrad, but 2 years later, and I just lost inspiration for it. So there was no issue, lots of flexibility. And at the beginning of this year, I was able to totally change my project. And now I'm looking at the mummy subgenre, which is, very different. But there was lots of support, and I was able to talk to different profs who I met during my year of coursework. And then that helped me figure out who I wanted to work with, who would be a good supervisor, second reader, etc. So there's no rush. Like you do have to get the proposal out quickly for, funding purposes, but you're always allowed to change your mind.
Yeah, I was just gonna add something similar to what Belle said, which is that yeah, you don't have to know when you come in, and you certainly can change your mind, right? You might write something in your statement of research interest, and then after you're taking your third class, you're gonna be like, oh my God, no, I want to do Caribbean diasporic literature. Like this is totally fine. Yeah, so don't worry about that. We very much appreciate that the part of the MA process is that process of discovery. All right, next up is Maylee. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, and this is in the chat. And the question, I believe, is for the MA project option in print culture specialization, can you do research creation as part of that? And the answer is yes. This has been happening more and more over the last several years. Students are doing research creation projects, combining, for instance, I'm thinking of, one of the more recent ones, like combining theories of the archive, personal archives, memory, and indigenous identity for one. We have people doing research creation in other ways as well, eco-poetry and identity. So there's some really interesting work happening there, and we do have lots of professors who support and specialize really in research creation. So that's been something that has been ongoing. I think, I don't know who's next, so I'm just gonna, Sophia, did you get
Ellen. It's Ellen.
Ellen, it's you, Ellen.
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I just have a question. My master degree is on course base. That means I don't have a thesis paper to apply to submit when I apply. Is this eligible for PhD program? For
Uh,
the
Well, I mean, for a PhD program, I mean, for the PhD, you definitely want to send in, we need to see a sample of your writing, the best possible version of your writing that there is, right?
right.
So, and generally, we are usually looking, because we're just comparing so many of these things, we like to see research or research creative writing. So it's got to be, if it can be outside the field, but it should sort of hit the marks of a research paper, if that makes sense.
All is it possible to provide a course final paper I of my one of my course during the master study?
Yeah, it's quite common for folks to send in as their writing sample, a seminar paper from
So
an.
that hit the section in the application for the sample papers, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and my second question here is when you say when you show your slide, it says 5 graduate courses plus graduate pro seminar. So at what level the seminar will be in school, within the department or
Yeah, so the graduate courses, the 5 courses that a PhD take will usually be in the department, in English department seminars. These are the graduate courses that I posted right on the slide. But like we were talking about earlier, you can take courses outside of the department. And then the pro seminar is run within the department. It is just for English graduate students. So it's just the incoming new cohort of students. We meet every Friday afternoon and we do all those things.
so that means a PhD student will work as organizer of this seminar and
No. It's a professional development seminar, but it is run by the graduate chair, and it's not run by PhD students. The PhD students are participants, but as students.
But so we need to provide kind of like submit paper or
There's no papers for the pro seminar. The pro seminar has some short writing assignments, but it runs as a very sort of informal, low stakes,
it's
ongoing class.
like open discussion.
Yes, and there's some readings. There's lots of guest speakers who come in and talk about various aspects of research and writing and other things.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Next up is Sophia. Do you have to wait to apply until after you graduate? No, you can apply if you're finishing up. You can apply while you're finishing up your last part of your undergraduate. You'll have to send in proof that you did it, that you finished. So what will happen is that when Graduate Studies sends you their offer letter, it'll say, conditional on completion of the undergraduate degree. I hope that answers your question.
Now we have Farah with a raised hand.
Yeah, Farah.
Hi again. Quick question. I did my undergrad in Iran, and I did get a master's degree in English literature in Iran as well. But the thing is, it was almost a decade ago. And in Canada, I'm an EA, and I did the program. And I was wondering, are these prove enough that I know English, and then can I apply with these degrees?
You can certainly apply with those degrees. That's not an issue at all. Graduate studies is what they're the people who control the language requirement for international students. But usually, I mean, in every instance, I'm aware if you have a degree at a university that the medium of teaching was English, that usually clears that requirement. But it's worth checking with graduate studies. They have a whole page, and you can plug in your country, and these formula pop up. It can be a little crazy, but I'm to the best of my knowledge that should be satisfying the requirement.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anyone else? Oh, Ellen.
Question?
Yeah, we have Ellen.
Okay.
Ellen?
Yes. I don't know if I'm correct or not. There's in your list of program on your website, there's a minimum funding, some PhD, PDF file attached saying that what the minimum funding for residents living in lower BC, somewhere like that. I don't know if I'm correct or not.
We do have a minimum funding policy for PhDs in place that the 4 years, for those 4 years, they're guaranteed a minimum of $28,000 a year.
So we're not necessary to be the residents in BC, right? I'm not from BC.
You don't have to be from BC, but you have to, if you're living here, you have to, it's not for people who are in British Columbia when they apply. Right. So if you're a student, if you're a PhD student here, it's an in-person program. That's when you receive the funding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Rick.
Hi, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. So I'm currently an English honors student in English at SFU right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to write my thesis next semester. But I'm curious to know about the sample paper. I have one paper. That's from like a 400 level that I think is more suited for the area of interest that I want to be applying to.
Nice.
But I also have my English honors prospectus, which I think is a better showcasing of my writing after taking some of these courses from SFU, the honors courses. So I'm kind of curious to know, in you guys' opinion, which paper that you think I should submit for this application process.
Yeah, Rick, sight unseen. That's a tough call. I don't know. A prospectus. If I understood you correctly, your honors project would be whatever you're doing for honors would be appropriate. But if you think you have a seminar paper or a upper division paper that's better suited to where you want to go, I would certainly give that serious consideration. If it's just the prospectus though, because I know you might not be done with your project, right? If it's just a prospectus, and again, I'm sorry if I misunderstood, I would go with a full paper rather than just a prospectus.
And I was
Before we
going to say,
continue, sorry, really quickly, I just want to say I actually have to run a tutorial, so I'll be leaving you. But it was really great. Hopefully it helps and good.
Thank you, Garin. Appreciate it.
Rick, I was just going to say, if you're worried that the 400 level paper is better in terms of topic, but maybe not quite as good as what you'll be producing in terms of research, you don't have to submit it the way you submitted it for your class. Like if you want to edit it and make it better beforehand, like go for it. I did. It's not like we're going to be like, oh, let's double check that, this is what was submitted for a grade in the course. That's not. Like if you want to update it or try and make it stronger or more reflective of your current academic ability, like you can do that.
And Matt, as well, there is a page requirement for the sample, is there not? Because I remember I had to edit mine down shorter.
Oh yeah, I think we cut you off at 15 or something, Belle. Does that sound right?
I'm not sure. I just remember I had to take a few pages out, but it actually worked in my favor because I took out all the specific things for a class. It was a 400 level paper, and it was like, they're not going to have context for all this close reading, so we could just take this out.
Right. Yeah, there is a page limit. So Jessica has a question that your most recent academic writing would be outside a 2-year period. I mean, we're pretty flexible with that, Jessica. If your best work, the paper that you want to represent you comes from a course that you finished a few years ago, that's really fine. And again, like Kate was just talking about, and Belle's just mentioned as well. You can edit that. You're not required to present us something that was turned in, right? You're just trying to show us your best work. So if that means revising or updating something that's a few years out, that's fine too. I hope that answers your question.
I think we can take maybe one more question before we need to wrap up.
One more. Yes, double spaced.
And Ellen, I would just suggest look when you're doing the application, look at the specific requirement there because we're not looking at it right now as we're telling you this.
We're trying to remember. We don't know. If there aren't any more questions, I just wanted to say,
Okay. Here, sorry, I have another one.
Okay.
How many pages you take a personal statement?
The personal statement is very short. I think it's 1 or 2 pages maximum.
2 pages you accept.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the application page tells you exactly what you need and how long everything should be. And I think there might even be like, you can treat it as like a checklist. Like it'll literally help you remember like all the different bits that you need in order to submit it. Thank you. Rebecca just put a link in the chat.
Yeah, which is perfect. Thanks, Rebecca. All right. Well, with that, we're at the end of our time. I wanted to thank our panelists, my superstar guest stars, Kate and Belle, with Garin as well. Thanks very much for your input and answering all these questions and what all the thoughtful stuff you had to say. And I want to thank everybody who came today to the session. I really appreciate your interest in the program. Like I said, if you have any questions about anything, do not hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to talk about the program, answer further questions or whatever. So just reach out, and I'm glad to do that. My contact info is all there on our graduate studies English graduate studies page. So you feel free to be in touch with me. And thanks again. Good luck with everything, everyone, and take care.